Alright, so basic neuron anatomy and functions. Um, so neurons have a cell body that is called a soma. And this is where the cell nucleus is found. The soma is the cell body of the neuron. And the soma is where the neuron produces a lot of proteins, which is a huge necessity for neurons. Um, and appendages and protrusions extend from the cell body. These are called dendrites, as well as axons. Most neurons will receive many input signals through their dendritic trees, and dendrites receive and process information. They are also bumpy and short. Um, One neuron may contain more than one set of dendrites and axons as well. Axons send impulses, and that is how they send signals. So by sending impulses, that is how they're able to communicate and send signals. And axons are also long. They're a lot longer than dendrites. Um, and axons are also terminals. So axon terminals rather are the axon endings. They are enlarged and are button shaped. Axon terminals make synaptic connections with other nerve cells or effector cells. Neurotransmitters are clinical substances. Um, and they are released at the end of a nerve fiber by way of arrival of nerve impulses, and they diffuse across the synapse or junction. They also cause impulse transfer to another cell fiber, muscle fiber, or other structure. Synapse are junctions between the nerve cells consisting of a minute gap across which impulses pass by diffusion of a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters are vesicles, otherwise known as synaptic vesicles that store various neurotransmitters, um, um, and are released at the synapse. The release is regulated by a voltage-dependent calcium channel. And Schwann cells are a type of glial cell of the peripheral nervous system that help to form the myelin sheath around nerve fibers. They envelop and rotate around the axon, forming the myelin sheath. Myelin is an insulating layer or sheath that forms around nerves. It allows for electrical impulses to transmit fast and efficient. Nodes of Rainier are periodic gaps in the insulating sheath or myelin sheath on the axon of certain neurons that serves to facilitate the rapid conduction of nerve impulses. The neuron cell membrane is partially permeable to sodium ions, and so sodium ions slowly leak into the neuron through sodium leakage channels. Sodium ions are outside of cells, while potassium ions are inside cells, and potassium ions are also partially permeable in the cell membrane. These two help to create brain signals. S- um, Saltatory conduction is the propagation of action potentials along myelinated axons from one node of Ranvier to the next node. And they also increase the conduction velocity of action potentials. The action potential of a neuron is around negative 55 MV for depolarization. So when it's depolarized to negative 55 MV, the action potential happens, and action potential is an explosion of electrical activity. Now, cell signaling was something we saw a lot, or something I saw a lot in researching. It's basically neurotransmission, or it is neurotransmission. Neurotransmission is cell signaling. Axons send signals and dendrites receive signals, these signals are hyperpolarized or depolarized, and when they find their target neuron. Integral proteins was also something that came up a lot. They form the channel of movement of substances in and out of cells, and this is seen within potassium and sodium channels. And basically, potassium and sodium being able to pass through integral protein chambers, or integral protein membrane proteins, and are able to pass in and out of cells. Active transport was also very similar to the um proteins, um, and we saw it a lot because they are basically hand in hand. They go together, because active transport is the pumping of uh, basically ions across the cell membrane, and that we see in sodium and potassium ions being passed against the gradient. Um, Passive transport was also something that I saw a lot, and it is the sudden shift from a resting to an active state when when the neuron generates nerve impulses, and this is caused by sodium movement of ions across the membrane. Um, one thing I also saw that I didn't add was the cell membrane was also very much something I saw. So basically, uh, the soma is a huge part of the cell membrane, and it is where a lot of the neuron power comes from. So yeah, those are my findings.